I'm sure you've all heard the news by now. Keefe D has been arrested for the murder of Tupac. In this video, we will take a look at that infamous night through the eyes of Keefe D, and we'll find out why he was arrested for what's considered one of the biggest unsolved mysteries from the 90s, and why Puff Daddy should be afraid for his future as this case develops. And that's because, according to the words from the protagonist of our video, Tupac's murder was partly caused by the founder of Bad Boy Records. Everything you're about to hear is quoted directly from Keefe D's autobiography and the countless interviews that he has done over the past 5 years concerning the murder of Tupac. Keefe D, whose real name is Dwayne Davis, is a member of the Southside Compton Crip gang, which was affiliated with the drug trade. In the early 90s, he got to know a fellow drug dealer named Earl Eric Von Zip, known by his gang simply as Zip. And it was actually Zip who introduced Keefe D to Puff Daddy. Zip and Puffy were very close friends at the time. For Keefe D though, Puffy was a regular guy who was just getting started with his business. But these days, Keefe D hates him, and he wishes that they had never met.
If I wouldn't have never met him, I wouldn't have never been involved in this bullshit.
After meeting for the first time, Puff and Keefe D would reconnect a few months later regarding renting a car for Usher's first music video.
And I should use my lowrider for Usher video.
Puff would pay Keefe D $2,400 for the car, and also
paying $4,000 to get the car repainted.
In the summer of 1995, Zip came to Keefe D's neighborhood and invited him to a party that Puff Daddy was throwing, and Zip called it the Beat Summer Jam. Suge Knight was at the party, and according to Keefe D's opinion, Suge Knight was already jealous of Puff Daddy's success because of how well things were going for him at the time. Knight asked him how he knew these folks, and Keefe would reply by saying that he knows them through drug dealing, just like everyone else that was at the party. Shortly after that is when that legendary Source Awards took place. And this event would pretty much be the catalyst for the West vs East Coast beef that took place in the late 90s and ultimately ended up taking the lives of Biggie Smalls and Tupac.
Any artist out there want to be an artist and want to stay a star and won't have to worry about the executive producer trying to be all in the video, all on the record, dancing, come to Death Row.
These are the words that would completely squash any hopes of peace between two of the biggest hip-hop record labels at the time, who were Death Row Records and Bad Boy Records. And then, according to Keith Murray, on September 23, 1995, at a party in Atlanta, tensions would escalate even further when Suge Knight, standing at 6'3", weighing approximately 300 pounds, confronted Puff Daddy and allegedly slapped Diddy in the face.
Pow! Smack the dog out of Puffy.
But Reggie Wright actually has a slightly different version of events from that evening. It's important to note that Reggie Wright's information comes to a second hand, being that he was not there at the time of the altercation.
But he did grab him by his collar and was blaming Puffy that night.
Either way, this altercation led to the murder of Suge Knight's best friend Big Jake. This murder has never been solved, but at the time, there was pretty much nationwide coverage on this murder, and they were saying that the hit came from Puffy's camp. After the murder, Puff called Zed, and he asked him to put Keefe D on the line. Puff would then go on to say to Keefe D that your boy, Big CEO, he's tripping. And obviously, these words were aimed at Suge Knight. Keefe D says that Puff was so scared that he hired ex-Navy SEALs who wore earpieces like they worked for the CIA, and they were staying in the hotel room right next to his suite.
And this nigga had Navy SEALs in the next room. It looking like the FBI with earpieces and everything. Like, damn.
Then, there was a meeting between Zip and Puff that took place at a strip club. They were later joined by Keefe D himself. That's when Keefe D would receive a proposal for $1 million to murder both Knight and Tupac. And to make matters even worse, Tupac would release the most savage diss track titled Hit 'Em Up. And this diss track was aimed directly at Biggie Smalls, Puff Daddy, and the entire Bad Boy record label. This diss track really made Puff Daddy angry.
Plus, Puffy tryna see me weak, heart some mark ass.
Keefe D would say that he ran into Pac a few times, and to him, he appeared to be a good guy. But then, at one of his concerts, Tupac would have to explain himself for lyrics that he had written in the California love song featuring Dr. Dre. Some of the Southsiders happened to be at the House of Blues on Sunset, and they ran into Tupac, and he was there with Big Syke from the Outlaws. One of the Southside gang members would run up and grab Tupac by the collar, saying, "Man, do you know what that Long Beach and Rosecrans stand for?" The next event that would happen would take place at the Lakewood Mall, and this event would later lead to Tupac attacking Orlando Anderson at the MGM in Las Vegas. One of Keefe D's friends named Victor, who was one of the main high school football players headed off to college, Keefe D would tell him that they wanted to give him a proper send-off before he leaves. To get a new outfit for the party, Victor went to the Lakewood Mall where he ran into 3 Piru gang members who were affiliated with Death Row Records. The Piru gang members started beating up Victor, and at the same time, members from the Southsiders gang entered the mall. As soon as Victor saw his gang enter the mall, he told the Piru members that now, the real battle begins. Victor knocked out one of the Piru members and snatched his death row chain. This fight would have major repercussions for the entire world, and it would forever change the world of hip-hop, because this would be the domino that would lead to Tupac getting shot. It was September 7, 1996, and it was Mike Tyson versus Bruce Seldon at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas, and Keefe D and a bunch of members from the Southside Crips were attending the fight that weekend as they've been doing since 1989. As fate would have it, Tupac Suge Knight and the entire Death Row Records would also be attending that very same Tyson fight in Vegas. And this is really where the rubber meets the road, and things quickly spin out of control. After the match, Keefe D and some friends went to a prearranged meeting place that the crew had planned in advance. Little by little everybody started showing up, except for Keefe D's nephew, Baby Lane, whose real name is Orlando Anderson. Next, Keefe D was told that his nephew, Baby Lane, was attacked by some guys from the music industry who were associated with Death Row Records. They saw Orlando moments after it happened, but the Death Row camp had already left. Orlando Anderson's shoulder was a little messed up, but other than that, he was mostly alright. When Keefe D asked him what happened, he said, "Death Row guys rushed me. One of the boys from the Lakewood Mall were running with the boy that started that shit." Keefe D couldn't let that go. For him, it was absolutely humiliating that his nephew got beat up by some random guys from the music industry. What makes things even worse is that Puff already asked for help and was willing to pay $1 million to get it done. So to Keefe D, Tupac had pretty much just sealed his own fate by attacking his nephew, Orlando Anderson. And then on top of that, Keefe D already had a grievance with Suge Knight for not appreciating the help he received with starting the label. So, that night, they decided to take revenge. They knew that they were headed down to the 662. While they were waiting for the valet to bring out their cars, Zip sees the opportunity and calls Keefe D over to his Benz. As he walked up to the passenger side window, he noticed that Foxy Brown was in the car with Zip. Zip then instructed Foxy Brown to step out of the car, and then motioned towards Keefe D to get in. Zip had a secret compartment that he then opened up. He reached in and pulled a black 40 Glock out. He turned to Keefe D and said, "It's time to get the money." Keefe D hopped out of the car and held the door for Foxy Brown to get back in. He closed the door, and then they pulled off. At the beginning, him and his guys waited for them for like an hour and a half. However, no one showed up, and Keefe D said that it was time to head out. Their next destination was the Carriage House, a Las Vegas hotel where they had rented a few rooms as a hangout spot. On the way back to the Carriage House, they stop at the liquor barn to grab some bottles of champagne. As they were driving to the liquor barn, it became evident that the guys in the van with Keefe D were worried that Suge Knight would get one of his police hitmen to come back and try to kill them if they went after them. It really pissed off Keefe, because why would they start this whole beef if they were actually afraid? After this, Keefe D sat in his friend's white Cadillac so he could go chill. he pulled out the Glock that Zip had given him and tossed it in the back seat. Bubble Up did the driving and Orlando Anderson and Dre were in the back seat. The Death Row Caravan hit the corner with Tupac hanging out of the window of a black luxury BMW waving to his fans. It's sad, because if Tupac had not been waving to his fans, they would have never even seen him. As they sat in traffic, they slowly rolled past the long line of luxury cars that they had in their caravan, peeking into each vehicle until they found the one that they were looking for. Then, Keefe D locked eyes with Suge Knight. The terrified expression on his face said, "Damn, it's really them." Pac pulled out a strap and that's when the fireworks started. One of Keefe D's guys in the back seat grabbed the Glock and started busting shots. The first shot skimmed Suge Knight's head. The rest were the bullets that took the life of Tupac. After the shooting, Keefe D and others would go back to the hotel they had rented and continue on with their night like nothing happened. Keefe D would go on to say that he didn't even tell his friends when they got back to the hotel because they didn't want word to get around. However, in Keefe D's autobiography, he says that they poured liquor out for Tupac when they got back to the hotel. Everyone who was in the white Cadillac that night has since passed away, and since the alleged shooter had died, Keefe D accepted what he misunderstood to be immunity, but was actually a proffer agreement. But the two are actually very different. Immunity is an exemption from a legal requirement. This deal is usually given in exchange for information. A proffer agreement is given in exchange for information, but the proffer agreement is only valid as a one-time use to obtain information, which means you are not exempt from the law after the initial meeting. Keefe D did not know the difference between the two, and was under the impression that he had received immunity in exchange for the information he gave to detectives. And since all of the other suspects who were in the vehicle on the night of Tupac's shooting had since passed away, Keefe D decided to write a book and began to do interviews where he spoke about the events of the night in great detail. So, after snitching on himself for over 5 years, Keefe D was finally arrested in September of 2023 and charged with the murder of Tupac, 27 years after that fateful night in Las Vegas. I was only 9 years old when Tupac was murdered, and I can still remember the day I heard the news. And despite being an East Coaster myself, I was the biggest Tupac fan, and I cried my eyes out that day. You can let me know in the comments what you think about Keefe D getting arrested for Tupac's murder. And do you think Puffy will ever see any charges regarding this case? Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all in a future video. This has been Alan for now.